Last year, the start of a new era in IMSA competition, Hypercar. This year, the defending winners, they are not back. So it's wide open for everyone in GTP, plus LMP2, and the very competitive GTD Pro and GTD. They are all here at Daytona for the 62nd Rolex 24 Hours of Daytona. Distinguished guests, welcome to Grid Network's Grid Life pre-race of the Rolex 24 at Daytona. A big hello to everyone watching. Welcome to our pre-race show for the Rolex 24 Hours of Daytona. My name is Joe Sananiga, and with me, we have Alex Anderson from the Gay Racing Podcast, Isha Azim from Racing with Isha, Kobe Lambeth, and Matthew Bro. A big welcome to everyone in the chat room. Let us know where you're watching from and stay engaged with us. We're very excited to have you join us for this big show. And of course, a big thank you to our Patreon investors, Colin, Michelle, Mark, Robin, David, and Matthew. You too can invest in the Grid Network through Patreon. You invested us, you'll get some stickers sent out to you, and we'll read your name on the air. You can also do a Buy Me a Coffee on YouTube Super Chat. And today, if you do a Super Chat, you'll get some stickers as well, and we'll read your comment on the air first over everyone else in the chat room. And of course, the simplest way to support us, subscribe, hit that bell icon so you don't miss any of our future programs. Will be on the air after the Rolex 24 Hours has concluded with the wrap-up show, plus Grid Tonight. The Women in Motorsports is coming back this week, and then a much more as the racing season kicks off into full gear. We encourage everyone watching in the chat room, share your questions, comments, opinions. Big thank you to some of the folks already. We see Ben, Matthew, so great to see you back on the air. I know, Matthew, it's been a while since we've seen you on the air. Isha, Alex, I know it's been a while as well, too. 2024, we're just slowly getting back into it again. And, of course, for everyone in the chat room as well watching us, don't forget, pick a winner at the end. You want to be participating in that. The leaderboard, still very much, anybody could get one race right, and you're tied for the lead with Ben and Matthew Owens from the Ultimate Sports Racing Network. Isha, the 2024 season is slowly coming back, as I mentioned, for the Grid Endurance Performance Index. This is the first major race of 2024 today.
That's right, Joe. This year's Rolex 24 at Daytona will see a 59-car field with 10 GTPs, 13 LMP2s, 13 cars in GTD Pro, and 23 GTD cars. Now, starting with GTP, Pippo Durrani won the pole, setting a new track record with a lap time of 1 minute and 32.656 seconds. Now, the Whelen Engineering Cadillac from Action Express Racing leads an all-Cadillac front row, with Sebastian Bourdais putting the number 1 Chip Ganassi Racing entry into second place. Now, Cadillac was fastest in all practice sessions this week leading up to the race. So here's the first question for you all. Kobe, starting with you, do you think Cadillac is the favorite to claim the overall win?
Well, Alicia, based on what we've seen so far from the Roar Before the 24 last weekend and all the practice sessions we've had this week, I think that Cadillac is the absolute favorite to win. It's been amazing seeing how fast Action Express and Chip Ganassi Racing have been throughout these last 2 weeks in Daytona. But it's no surprise, Action Express and Ganassi, they're the best of the best in sports car racing and one of the top teams in motorsports in general. So I think based on what we've already seen, it would be a big disappointment for General Motors if Cadillac cannot get the job done. I think that right now, if you're putting a bet on the race, those are probably going to be the 2 entries that you're probably going to go with. I know before we got to the Roar Before the 24, a lot of people were expecting to see Porsche, try to make a run at this because Porsche, made some improvements to their GTP prototype over the off season to try to, try to improve their performance. Yeah, Porsches look good, but right now it's a Cadillac world and we're all living in it. So I really do think that Cadillac is the overall favorite right now. Maybe Porsche's a good second, and then the 2 Acuras from Wayne Taylor Racing with Andretti. But one manufacturer, that we really haven't talked about is BMW. BMW's kind of, just been there, in the middle. I think BMW is probably one of the biggest underdogs heading into this race. Yeah, BMW may not have the same pace as the Cadillac, but at the end of the day, yeah, it's good to have all the speed that the Cadillac is showing, but there are a lot of things that are going to come into factor, like reliability, some things that could happen during the race, that could put Cadillac out of contention. So I think, that while Cadillac is really fast right now, it doesn't guarantee a victory at all, because anything can happen in the 24 hours of Daytona, because it's such a unpredictable 24-hour event. And sometimes, I know it's a 24-hour endurance race, but sometimes it really feels like a 24-hour sprint race, because sometimes during this race they'll be racing just as hard during the first hour as they are in the final hour.
And that was going to be my exact point, Kobe, is it's a 24-hour race. You can look at all the practice times. You can look at the roar. I just don't think you can just say, oh, yeah, we have a favorite. Too many things can happen. You can have a mechanical failure. Something can go wrong. You can have a crash. There's a lot of time for things to go wrong. And mind you, Acura won the last 2 years. A lot can happen. And I don't know. I don't want to hand the trophy over to Cadillac just yet. They might be the favorites based on what we've seen so far. But there's a lot of race to go. We have 24 hours coming up.
Definitely. In 24 hours, 86,400 seconds. It doesn't matter because anything can happen, like both Kobe and Alex were saying. Also, Ben, great to see you. Sucks that you're not here in the little box with us, too. It's always a pleasure. But, yeah, Cadillac, absolutely. They have to be the favorite here. Just the dominant performance they've been putting on in every single practice session, qualifying. However, I like the point Kobe made, though, about BMW. They were a little sneaky up there. They were second in a couple of the practices. Acura, it's hard to bet against them, too. I mean, the issue, too, with that is Acura has been fast here. They're all fast, obviously. But Cadillac does fast qualifying, practicing. But when it comes to those 86,400 seconds, they don't win, is what I'm alluding to. So I think they're the favorite, absolutely. If I were to bet on this race, I don't really know who I would bet on. I have a pick for the pick a winner, though, we'll get to eventually, but I don't know if it's going to be Cadillac. I'm going to have to really consider this. But yes, is Cadillac the favorite? Absolutely. But would I be shocked to see Cadillac not win this? No, I wouldn't be shocked at all.
Yeah, and as you guys all said, it's a 24-hour race. Anything can happen. So it's definitely going to be interesting to pay attention to what goes on. But now, taking a look at the co-drivers from Cadillac, Scott Dixon and Alex Palou have been strong for Ganassi. The two IndyCar stars have definitely been at the top of their game since the roar before the 24, and they will be strong with full-season drivers Sebastian Bourdais and Renger van der Zande. Now, joining Pippo Durrani and Jack Aitken, it's Tom Blomqvist getting an endurance role with Action Express after Meyer Shank Racing took a sabbatical from IMSA this year. So, Alex, starting with you this time, which Cadillac co-driver will be most important to their team's success?
So I'm a big Renger van der Zande fan. I love hearing Lee Diffie say his name. Gets me hyped every time. But I gotta say Tom Blomqvist, being at Action Express, that is going to be so fun to watch. We've only seen him at Meyer Shank Racing, that team, as you said, Isha, not racing in this year's Rolex. That is going to be a powerful dynamic, I think. Blomqvist is just incredible. He's going to be the guy to beat. I really think if Cadillac is the favorite, they have Tom Blomqvist. That might be a big reason why. But I also want to shout out, as I said, Van der Zande. But I also want to mention Pippo Durrani, always solid in this race as well. Cadillac's got a lot of good drivers this year.
Definitely, I can agree with. I think Blomqvist definitely. When you bring somebody who's won this multiple times with that amount of experience, that amount of talent, it's hard to really bet against Cadillac. Now I'm like talking myself into maybe picking them. He's just, I would go with Blomqvist as well, just because of the talent he has, the experience he has here. I wouldn't doubt I believe they won the last two, right, with him with Meyer Shank. I think they can make it 3 in a row for him specifically. I know Meyer Shank's on their little sabbatical after last season's results and stuff like that, but I have to add to what Alex said. I mean, I think Blomqvist, he'll be the biggest factor in terms of what happens in the next 24 hours.
Yeah, and before I go into this question, I just want to say, how weird is it to be coming down to Daytona for the Rolex 24 and not have Meyer Shank Racing on the grid? It's really crazy, after 2 decades of seeing them on the grid every single year. Unfortunately, they couldn't find a GTP program for 2024, but, co-owner Michael Shank keeps saying, that they kept all their IMSA equipment, they kept all of their sports car equipment, kept everyone on the sports car program on the payroll, so they're hopeful to come back in 2025, with another GTP program with a brand new manufacturer. So I think this is probably just going to be a 1 year off from IMSA competition for Meyer Shank Racing. We'll probably see them back in 2025. with a brand new manufacturer. And Alex, I totally agree with you on the point about Tom Blomqvist being very, very important. I think the Action Express lineup of Pippo Durrani, Jack Aitken, and Tom Blomqvist is going to be very, very strong. And but the one co-driver that I think is going to be most important to their team success is the two-time IndyCar champion Alex Palou. Looking at him in the practice session, at the top, and from the Roar last weekend, Palou has been very impressive, super fast in this Chip Ganassi Racing Cadillac, and I really think that having the extra co-driver like Alex Palou, who is just super quick and getting the job done, I think that he can really gain Ganassi a lot of time in this race. In that lineup in general, Ringer, Van der Zande, Sebastian Bourdais, Scott Dixon, and add Palou and all that. I think that's a very strong driver lineup, and I really do think Palou can potentially be a difference maker in this car.
Definitely, guys. And now let's take a look at the GTP class as a whole. So we have 4 Porsches from Proton Competition, Porsche Penske Motorsport, and JDC Miller Motorsports. Now, last year's Indianapolis 500 champion Joseph Newgarden is in the field, and he will be driving the number 7 Porsche. Also, Ben Keating is going to be pulling the Rolex 24 double again, competing in the GTP class with JDC, as well as in the LMP2 with United Autosports. And Keating did take pole in the LMP2 class last Sunday. So here's an interesting question for you all. Are you more excited to see Keating run 2 cars in 2 different classes, or Joseph Newgarden running GTP at the Rolex 24? Matthew, what do you think?
That's definitely a tough one, because as someone who is more familiar with IndyCar than IMSA, it's awesome to see Newgarden. I mean, incredible talent race. But something about Ben Keating being able to compete in 2 separate classes is just awesome, not only for people who watch motorsports like ourselves, but people in general or maybe not as familiar with it. A lot of people don't realize the difficulty of being accustomed to one vehicle, one set, whether the gears shift differently, all that stuff. But then when you have to hop into another car after being in another car and continue that process, he's racing more than anyone will be if all goes well for both his teams. So I'm going to have to lean with Keating on this one. I think that's just an incredible sight to see, and I hope he can bring his team to the top for both of them, or both divisions, I should say.
Well, Matthew, I'm actually going to go the opposite of you, and I guess this is because I've probably been watching the Rolex 24 a lot more than you have, but I've seen Ben Keating do this multiple times before, so it's really something that's not completely new to me. So I'm actually going to say I think I'm more intrigued to see Joseph Newgarden running in the GTP class at Daytona later today. He made his Rolex 24 debut last year for Tower Motorsports in the LMP2 class, but this will be his GTP debut at Daytona, going for overall win. I think Joseph Newgarden did really well when he was in the Penske Porsche at Petit Le Mans. Showed some really good speed, and he's also shown some good speed as well at Daytona, in all the practice sessions and all of that. So I think it's going to be very exciting to see what Joseph Newgarden can do in the top class in this year's Rolex 24.
So for me, it's both of these. Ben Keating's just a badass. Like, this is so cool. I love that guy so much. I think that's going to be one of my favorite parts of this race to watch. But Joseph Newgarden running GTP at the Rolex 24, that's going to be really cool. He's going to be doing what Helio Castroneves did and winning the Indy 500 and then the Rolex 24 within the same year. It could happen. That'd be really cool for Joseph to add that to his long career here. But I mean, both of these, Ben Keating, man, that's going to be so much fun seeing the broadcast check in on Ben Keating and see what he's doing. Hey, he's still in a race car. I think that's going to be so much fun to watch.
Definitely, it's going to be very interesting to see both of them competing. And taking a look at Wayne Taylor Racing this year, they, with Andretti, are expanding to a 2-car operation. And in the traditional number 10 Acura, Ricky Taylor and Felipe Albuquerque return along with endurance driver Brendan Hartley and Andretti Global's newest IndyCar driver Marcus Ericsson. Now, over in the number 40 Acura, Jordan Taylor returns to his father's team alongside Louis Delatraz, IndyCar's Colton Herta, and Formula One world champion Jenson Button. So, Kobe, which WTR with Andretti car do you anticipate having the better race?
Oh, that's a real tough question, Isha, because both of their driver lineups are absolutely stacked. It's hard to go wrong with either one. I think either the 10 or the 40 could potentially have the better race. But I'm actually gonna go with the newest car to the stable, the number 40. I just think that the lineup, you have Louis Delatraz, who's very impressive in his endurance role in the number 10 last year. Thought he showed a lot of great pace, and getting the full time drive with Jordan Taylor, who's returning the prototypes, and to no one's surprise, Jordan Taylor's return to prototypes has been a seamless transition. Before he started, focusing on his Corvette factory driver role for the last couple of years or so. He was on a prototype with his dad's team for so many years. So this is just like coming back home for him. And Colton Herta, we really haven't seen what he's been able to do on a prototype yet. But I mean, he was in the BMW prototype, but a lot last year, they had a lot of issues with reliability, and they didn't really have the pace. So I really think that Colton Herta wasn't able to show like what he could really do in this type of car. So I think he's on a much better car now and in a better team. So I think he can really, shine in this year's Rolex 24 and Jensen Button, trying to collect a Rolex watch. And he's a guy who needs no introduction, a Formula One world champion, won a lot of races, he's competed in multiple disciplines throughout his racing career. I think the number 40 has a very exciting driver lineup, equally exciting as the number 10. But if I had to pick, I'm definitely going with the number 40.
Yeah, definitely going with Kobe on this one. The number 40. I mean, both teams, this in practice, qualifying, back to back, are like they're going against each other. The 10 team's better this time, but then the next day, the 40 team's better. It's a lot of talent, but I'm going to have to go with the 40 team as well, just because, I mean, look at that with Delatraz, with Colton Herta, who, like Kobe was saying, you can't really judge how he's going to perform today based on last year. Then, I mean, Jensen Button is just an incredible. He's the definition of a race car driver. He can do pretty much anything. He has shown he can do anything. And then Jordan Taylor as well, just an incredible talent on that side. So I'm going to lean with the 40 team as well. And Acura and Wayne Taylor Racing came with a lot of talent here. And I think if anyone can knock off Cadillac, it is going to be one of these two teams in the next 25 hours technically, but. Yeah, so I'm going with the 40 team on this one.
I thought I was going to be alone on this because I'm also going with the 40, primarily because I think Jordan Taylor's homecoming back to the family team, it feels like a storybook kind of thing that happens a lot in motorsports. I think Jordan Taylor is going to go in here and is just going to carry this team. Possibly, not saying if they're my win yet, my pick a winner, but I think they're going to be a strong contender to get the overall win in the Rolex 24.
Yep, definitely. And now let us take a quick break to look at the chat room to see what comments and questions we have. So Adam says this is going to be an incredible race. So much talent. That's so true, Adam. It is definitely going to be interesting. And he says Porsche. And A Day in the Life says BMW shocks the world, I'm assuming they meant.
I could see it.
Yeah, I definitely think BMW could shock the world as well, because, like I say, this is like seeing all the buzz going on about the Rolex 24. Everyone's obviously talking about Cadillac. There are people talking about Acura as well, and the Porsches. But I haven't really seen a lot of people talk about BMW. But like you said, Alex, they've been kind of sneaky up there. So yeah. I think we could potentially see an underdog upset win here. I don't know if the Ray Hall BMW team, if we call them an underdog or anything like that, but. We're not talking about them, and sometimes in motorsports, the team you at least talk about is the one that ends up surprising you the most.
Yep, definitely. And Brandon Thompson asks, so I can watch the race on IMSA live. Yep, so actually one of our very own Joshua Birch is having a watch along as well. And so you can definitely watch along with him, and we've got all of the Rolex 24 broadcast information up here as well.
And I also want to add right there, as you can see there on the screen, here in the United States, you can watch the beginning of the Rolex 24 coverage at 1:30 p.m. Eastern time, and that's going to end at 2:30 p.m. and then from 2:30 to 8 it's gonna go back over to USA, and then there's gonna be a 2-hour break. It's gonna be back on USA to midnight, and then you can wake up early in the morning at 6 a.m. to noon to go back on USA, and then the final hours of the race is going to be on Big NBC from noon to 2 p.m. Eastern time. And you can also watch all 24 hours, uninterrupted on the Peacock streaming service. And if you're watching internationally, you can watch it on IMSA TV.
A lot of ways to watch it. A couple more comments in the chat room. Thank you guys. for being on the air. Super excited for today's race from RKD. So, and such killer lineups of Wayne Taylor Racing for sure. The lineups there are phenomenal, and Casey Campbell should be a great Rolex 24. Is there ever a year where there isn't a great Rolex 24? I don't know. What's the weather going to be for this evening? I know Matthew later in the show is going to be talking about the weather, but let's talk a little bit now about LMP2 and the GT classes. Of course, we've done a lot about GTP, but of course, LMP2 definitely is going to be a very competitive class because in total, we have 13 cars in LMP2, and they're bringing a lot of big names. Names such as Pato O'Ward, Colin Brown, Scott McLaughlin, Connor Zilish, Christian Rasmussen, Paul di Resta, Felix Rosenquist, Felipe Massa, and Kevin Simpson, among many other names. Now, when it comes to all the drivers racing in LMP2, starting with you, Kobe, out of all the drivers in LMP2, who has the best shot at winning in this really stacked field of LMP2 drivers with a lot of familiar names from outside sports car racing?
Oh, that's really tough, Joe, because looking at all these LMP2 driver lineups, I think the teams across the board have done a really great job, assembling these lineups. And I know we say this every year, but it seems like as each year goes by in the Rolex 24, these driver lineups just get stronger and stronger and stronger. And it seems like, this year's LMP2 lineup is the strongest we've ever seen before. I know a lot of people are probably going to be thinking that, the United Autosports entries are probably going to be one of the favorites to win, especially that number 2 entry, that's starting on the pole with Ben Keaton. Nico Pino was very impressive in LMP2. Ben Hanley was a part of that exciting finish last year with James Allen. That photo finished in the LMP2 race in 2023, and also IndyCar star Pato O'Ward in that entry. That's going to be a really good lineup, but I'm going to actually go with the number 74 Raleigh Motorsports LMP2 entry because I think that they're sneaky good. As you can see right there, they're going to be starting today's race in 4th place on the second row of the LMP2 class. And I think that driver lineup is super impressive when you look at Gar Robinson and Felipe Fraga, who've been working together for a handful of years. You got Josh Burden and then Felipe Massa from the Formula One world. I think that car, really fast, and it doesn't surprise me that Riley Motorsports would be able to transition from the LMP3 class to LMP2 and LMP3. They were really, really good. And with LMP3 going away, decided to step up to LMP2, and it seemed like it's been a seamless transition for that team. So it would not surprise me if we see the number 74 winning in their LMP2 debut with Gar Robinson, Felipe Fraga, Josh Burden, and Felipe Massa.
I think this could go many different directions in LMP2, but I really, really like the team with Ben Keating and Pato O'Ward with the Orica team. That's going to be such a strong lineup. But I also think Tower Motorsports, I think they're going to have a big redemption after last year. They had issues on the pace laps last year, and then they were just set back from the start pretty much all race long. And it just kind of put them back, and they just kind of tried making up laps as the race went on. I believe they made up quite a few of their laps. They had Joseph Newgard and Scott McLaughlin in that car last year. This year they have Scott McLaughlin again. I think they're going to make a good run at it this year over at Tower Motorsports.
Yeah, definitely, guys. I think it's going to be a tough race. We've got some big names on the field, but if I have to pick one, I'm going to go with the first lineup that Kobe talked about, the number 2 United Autosports entry with Ben Keating, Nico Pino, Ben Hanley, and Pato O'Ward. I think that they've got a really good shot, as you talked about. Lots of people are going to be rooting for them. And we know that Keating's got, I believe, 2 LMP2 titles, and then Pino started multiple LMP3 races, and Pato O'Ward's got 2 Rolex 24 class wins. So I think that they've got a really good shot, but I'm just definitely going to be very excited to see how the race goes.
Now, once again, 13 cars, but in GTD Pro, that is a very stacked field as well, too. We see Paul Miller Racing, they're stepping up to all pro class over in GT Pro. Here is the GT Pro GTD lineup. One of the big things, Madison Stowe recently became a BMW factory driver. We see a pair of factory-supported entries from Corvette Racing by Pratt Miller Motorsports. A different style of operations compared to the old Corvette factory team. And PFAB Motorsports is switching to McLaren after representing Porsche with the number 77. Rexy Porsche steps up to GTD Pro. Of course, a lot of folks excited to see the T-Rex car back on the track again. And we see Multimatic Motorsports with 2 Ford Mustang GT3s a lot of new things to look forward to in this class for 2024. Alex, starting with you, GTD Pro usually puts on a really good show here at Daytona, one of the most competitive classes we've been talking about. And are you expecting essentially another barn burner? Because I don't see why it's not going to deliver.
Yeah, exactly, Joe. Why wouldn't they? It happens every year, so yeah, it's going to happen again. I think the finish is going to be incredible. Lee Diffie's going to be screaming. I'm going to be screaming. We're all going to be screaming. I can't wait. Yeah, it's going to be another barn burner finish, barn burner race for GTD Pro, of course.
It's hard to go against what happens all the time, right? If you're a betting person, it's like, why wouldn't you bet that this is the most competitive class? Why wouldn't you bet that we're going to have probably the most exciting finish in this one? So, I mean, kind of alluding to what Alex said as well. It's going to be awesome, and that's definitely one of the most exciting parts of the Rolex 24 every year is seeing the GTP Pro class. I'm kind of like speechless trying to figure out what to say. It's just awesome quality of racing every single time these guys and girls get out on the track, especially here at the Rolex 24.
Yeah, this GTD Pro field, it seems like it continues to get better year after year, and especially from the GTLM era as well. Then we transition to GTD Pro and all of that. I think that the lineups, just in this class as well, is just as strong as in LMP2 and GTP as well. Yeah, just looking through at the list of teams and drivers who are in the field, it's going to be very exciting to see what Paul Miller Racing can do in the All Pro class. Madison Snow being able to become a BMW factory driver. When Madison Snow, he just coming to sports car racing, just trying to be a gentleman driver and all of this. And look at him, he's just as fast as like his teammate Brian Sellers and all of that. And I think Sellers and Snow could have another great year. They had a dominant year last year in the GTD class, so really intrigued to see what they're going to be able to do in 2024. And then got the two Corvettes are back. Is not the same Corvette, the factory Corvette racing team that we've seen in the past. Corvette racing is mostly is going to be focused on customers now. That's why you got the Corvette racing by Pratt Miller Motorsports supporting this entry. Corvette brought two great cars, with Antonio Garcia, Alexander Sims, and Danny Hunkadei in the number 3, and the number 4. The number 4 is Tommy Milner, Nicky Katzberg, and Earl Bamber. A strong lineup there. Got Pfaff Motorsports going to the McLaren. I know it's going to feel weird not seeing them in the Porsche. They got a really great lineup there. Got two people from the IndyCar world in that number 9 McLaren, James Hinchcliffe, and Aaron McLaren IndyCar star Alexander Rossi. Vassar Sullivan, the Lexus should be really good as well with Jack Hawksworth, Ben Barnacote, and Kyle Kirkwood from the IndyCar series, and also Mike Conway as well. Got 2 entries from the Iron Lynx and Lamborghini. Some of their future prototype drivers, who don't, as we all know, Lamborghinis, their prototype is not going to debut in IMSA until the Mobile 112 Hours of Sebring in March. So, their GTP drivers needed something to do in the meantime. So the Iron Lynx and Lamborghini decided to stick them in one of their GTD Pro cars in the meantime. So they'll have something to do for the Rolex 24. And we also have the Heart of Racing at Aston Martin as well. Ross Gunn, Alex Riberas, and Mario Farnbacher. Always a threat at Daytona. Risi Competizione. I feel like a lot of people aren't really talking about them and the Ferrari, but you never really know it. The Risi group got another great lineup of Daniel Serra, Davide Rigon, Alessandro Perguidi, and James Collado. And one of the most highly anticipated additions to GTD Pro is the Ford Mustang GT3s from Multimatic Motorsports. It's been a few years since we've seen Ford racing in GT. They were racing with the Ford GT under the Chip Ganassi Racing banner, but now Multimatic Motorsports. They got the factory Ford program here in IMSA, and they have 2 good cars in the number 64 and number 65. Ford Mustangs and Harry Tinknell, Mike Rockefeller, and Christopher Mees in the 64, and over in the 65, you got Joey Hand, Dirk Miller, and Frederick Vervish in that car. And number 75, you got the Sun Energy 1, Mercedes, Kenny Habul, Jules Gounon, Mauro Ingo, and Lucas Stoltz. Another great lineup there. And last but not least, you got the Rexy Porsche, the AO Racing. They're on the pole for it in GTD Pro. Really, really fast. Rexy has truly become a fan favorite. And I'm sure a lot of people will be very excited to see Rexy, finally get into victory lane in IMSA competition.
Rexy, one of the most popular vehicles out there. And of course, we've been talking about GTD Pro. GTD, let's not leave them out. They got a pretty stacked field in total. 23 cars in GTD. Alex, is this the most unpredictable class to correctly predict a winner? Thankfully, we don't do pick a winner off this class. We do the overall race win. But which teams out of this unpredictable GTD class will you keep a close eye on?
I mean, I'm glad we don't do pick a winner, Joe, because I don't know what I'd do. I'd probably just do a little randomizer, put them all in, and then I'd just pick whatever the randomizer picked. But I don't know. This class is a lot of fun to watch. I think it's arguably one of the most enjoyable. I know most of the attention goes to GTP, rightfully so. It's the overall win, and that's where most of the big name drivers are. But I don't know if you can really say there is a favorite. I think one of my favorites I'm going to watch is, as Kobe mentioned, was the team with Hinchcliffe and Alexander Rossi on it. That's going to be a lot of fun to watch. But if I had to pick one, I think I would go with one of the Vassar-Sullivan guys, one of those teams. I think those are just always a lot of fun. But I mean, it's too difficult to pick just one standout in that division, I believe.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Alex. Yeah, GTD is really stacked. I feel like we've been talking about all four classes been stacked. I think we can establish that that regardless of what class you're paying attention to, they have some really great driver lineups. It's really hard to pinpoint one specific team or driver in this GTD class who can potentially win. I think you could just we could have a GTD driver lineup, Wheel of Destiny, to try to pick a winner because it is just so unpredictable because this class is so big. And I always think it's very interesting, with the GTD Pro and the GTD cars, having the same balance of performance. So sometimes you'll see a GTD car faster than all the GTD Pro cars, and vice versa. Just like looking at the qualifying lineup, you have the Rexy Porsche on pole, and then you had the number 14 Vassar-Sullivan GTD Pro Lexus right behind them. And then third fastest of all GT cars is the GTD entry from Vassar-Sullivan, that Lexus. So, and then you have a whole bunch of GTD cars in between that before you get to the next GTD Pro car, a Corvette. Then behind the number 3 Corvette, you have a GTD, then 2 GTD Pros, then 1 GTD, then another GTD Pro, and then a bunch of GTDs before you get to the next span of GTD Pros. So it's just very mixed. Got this large GT class. It often leads to a lot of exciting racing and all of that. I think overall that's going to be a good show. But I think one team you're going to obviously have to watch out for is that number 83 Lamborghini, the Iron Dames, Rahel Fry, Michelle Godin, Sarah Bovey, and Dorian Penn, who's a lot of great things have been happening with her lately, signing on as a a Mercedes junior driver, and getting more involved in the single seaters. And we talked about that on a recent Grit Tonight show. And talked about all the great things that she has coming for her, and that great run she had in Petit Le Mans last year during the opening stint, driving to the very front of all the GT cars. She was leading GTD, and she was in front of all the GTD Pro cars and all those factory drivers as well. That was a very impressive form. And I know we're going to talk a lot about some of the women that are racing in this year's Rolex 24 coming on later in our program. But I think, that the Iron Dames Lamborghini, you're definitely have to pay attention to them, especially young Dorian Penn, because she's going place right now in motorsports. And if you haven't heard of Dorian Penn by now, you need to start paying attention to her because she's going to be a serious player in motorsports for years to come.
Very serious player. And of course, encourage everyone to subscribe to us because this upcoming week, Women Motorsports will be back and we'll be talking a lot about Dorian Penn. Now let's get caught up with the chat room. We have a lot of Leonardo tripped and stumbled on this channel. Ha ha ha. Well, definitely encourage you to subscribe because we're going to be having a lot more programs with the wrap-up show, Grid Tonight, latest news recap, and then Women Motorsports. And then, of course, next weekend, we're getting ready for the Busch Light Clash. So we'll be back on the air. Thumbs up from Jason. Thank you for tuning in. Leonardo, I'm excited for the Mustangs. Mustangs, Corvettes. That's just something where I know a lot of fans, especially in the United States, that love American sports cars, muscle cars, they got to be really excited about. Very interesting question. Is pole super important for a long race like this? Kobe, I'll start off with you. In your opinion, how important is that pole?
I mean, I guess it's good, for pride and all of that, but I think that's really all it is. To be honest, this is one of the, in sports car racing, especially in a 24-hour event, it really doesn't matter where you start. We've seen people come from the very back of the field come through and win this race because so many things can happen. Let's say if it was like say a sprint race or something at Long Beach or Detroit, then probably that would not be good if you were starting last. But as we saw, the I believe it was the number 5 Proton Proton Mustang sampling Porsche GTP. They got some damage in that short little 20, I think it was like 20-minute practice session before qualifying last Sunday at the end of the Roar before the 24. But they decided, instead of trying to rush the car out for qualifying, they decided to fix the car, just start last. And it just shows how little of importance that qualifying is. If qualifying was very important, they could have probably just rushed to get that Porsche ready to go. But they decided, we're going to take our time and make sure that we get this Porsche right for race week. So I really don't think qualifying is really important at all in this race, because there's so many different variables that can happen, so many different strategies that you're going to be going on throughout the race. In the original strategy you have, when you start the race, it's not going to be the same by the end, because there's something that's going to happen, and you're going to have to keep adjusting. Your strategy is going to be really important, because these strategies are really good at their job, some of the best that there is in motorsports, and they're constantly adapting, and they're going to have to make sure they're putting their drivers in the best possible position to go out there and get the win. So just to summarize everything I said, qualifying on pole is while it might be a great thing from a pride point of view, something that the team can high five about, given all their hard work over the offseason, put together a fast car for this driver to go out there and set a very fast lap. I don't think it's very important, in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's important in many other series, but when it comes to endurance racing, you got a very long time to make a mistake. I feel like that's the thing here. So is it a pride thing? Yes, absolutely. Is it important? I would argue it's one of those things that it's important to an extent, but in a race like this where there's so much time, 24 hours, if you make a mistake in hour 5, you have the rest, the 19 of, yeah, that's math. It's been a while. 19 hours left to be able to fix that mistake. And so you could go from first to last and then back up to first. But then if you make that mistake all the way in the back at hour 21, you're going to have a significantly more difficult time to be able to come back up through the field. So it's one of those things, it's like a double-edged sword. It's important, yes, because you always love to start out front. That's why they have qualifying and stuff. It's an advantage to start out front. But at the same time, you can very easily have one mistake and then go from first to last, especially considering there's so much time to make those mistakes.
Yeah, I totally agree with everything you just said, Matthew. This qualifying doesn't matter overall, probably not, but I think track position is still something that's important, because you want to be up front, you want to be leading the race, you want to avoid any carnage within your own class at the start. But something can go wrong, as you said, like an hour 5, and you can still recover from that. Or even if you qualify bad, you still have plenty of time to make your way back up to the front. But overall, no, but also yes.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with everything that everyone has said so far. We were talking about this earlier in the show, but in a race that lasts for 24 hours, anything can happen, right? We even say that for shorter races as well, but in a 24-hour race, I feel like the pole doesn't matter as much. You could go from being last to being first, or you could go from first to last. It's really just a matter of the strategy that the teams have and just overall how they perform throughout the duration of the 24 hours. And I think that the best benefit that maybe comes from having that pole in qualification is that it maybe gives you that extra boost of confidence and more optimistic thoughts, at the start of the race, which might help you in a mental point of view. But I think that overall, in a 24-hour race, the pole doesn't matter as much as it does in other shorter races.
In this race, 24 hours, the length, the pole, sense of pride, but it's definitely something where if you didn't get pole, it's not the end of the world compared to tracks where passing is a premium. Question for everyone in the chat room. Comment with your response to this thought. Should there be bonus points or bonus prize for getting the pole award? We know some series like Formula E, 3 bonus points if you get the pole. Should IMSA do that? Let us know. A couple more comments. Jason agreeing with Leonardo, excited for the Mustang. Ray, good day, folks. Who will win the Rolex 24 overall and the 2 other class wins? Ray, we have pick a winner where we encourage you to stick around. Get on the leaderboard if you get the overall winner right. For the other 2 classes, they don't count towards pick a winner. But Kobe, Matthew, Alex, Isha, for the other 2 classes, are we brave enough to make a prediction yet on who's going to win those classes? Not yet.
Well, Joe, I think I'll take a stab at the other classes. In LMP2, I think I've already set my pick. I think the number 74, Riley Motorsports. LMP2 is going to get the job done there. And in the GTD Pro class, let me take a look at the sheet right quick. This is also going to be a very difficult one to navigate, but I think I'm going to go with the number 3 entry, Corvette Racing by Pratt Miller Motorsports. That team has been so great for so many years, especially supported by Pratt Miller Motorsports. So I think that they could potentially get the job done in GTD Pro, but GTD, I think it's completely wide open. I have no idea what's gonna happen there. So, but I think it's gonna be a Corvette sweep of the GT classes. Give me the number 13 AWA Corvette Z6 GT3R of Ray Fadani, Matthew Bell, Lars Kern, and Alex Lynn. Yeah, so those are my picks. I'm not sure if anybody else is brave enough to share their picks for the other 3 classes before we share our GTP and overall winner picks at the very end of our show.
I'm going to take a shot at it for LMP2. I'm going United Autosports, number 2. And for GTP, they have Dorian Pin. I think they have to be one of the favorites. I mean, not GTP, excuse me, GTD. He get
I was
all
going to
class.
say. They wish they had Dorian Pin. They probably win.
Yeah. GTD, I think Dorian Pin and the Iron Links are going to be top of their group as well. More comments. Is this a official pre-race show? The official pre-race show, of course, you got to be watching over on NBC, and those networks will have the race information coming up shortly for you. And then we also have from Turbo Production, that's a random question. Sorry about that. But very important for all these drivers to be hydrated and have a strict diet as well when it comes to being in fit. And as for the race broadcast information, of course, if you're in the United States, there's all your options. And of course, if you're on Peacock, you could watch pretty much all the pro race. They have different parts for the full 24-hour race, but you'll be able to watch it all on Peacock. If you want to also watch and participate with a group of friends, check out Joshua Burst Watch Along. He'll be on YouTube, link in the video description. And of course, for everyone internationally outside the United States, IMSA TV is broadcasting outside the United States. So those are some of your options when it comes to one of the big races of the year, the Rolex 24 Hours. Now, Alex, we talked a lot about the classes. What are some of the news and notes entering this race?
Well, yeah, let's start with yesterday's IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge, the season opener at Daytona. It saw an exciting fuel mileage finish that resulted in a surprising winner. They stretched the fuel further than anyone else in the GS class. Number 91, Kelly Moss with Riley Porsche earned the overall win with Riley Dickinson, Michael McCarthy, and Brady Golan. In TCR, the number 17 JDC Miller Motorsports Audi of Chris Miller and Mikey Taylor took class honors. However, the entry in the class that received the most attention was the number 23 TGR Smooge Racing Toyota GR Supra GT4 with 3 NASCAR drivers. 2311 Racing's Bubba Wallace, Legacy Motor Club's John Hunter Nemechek, and Tricon Garage Truck Series driver Corey Heim made their debut in IMSA competition. Bubba Wallace started the car from the back of the GS field, and after the team made unapproved adjustments, and it gradually moved up through the field. After a restart, Wallace and other GS cars made contact, causing damage to the 23 Toyota's wheel, which forced them to pit. This resulted in them losing a lap and pretty much being out of contention for a good finish, although all 3 drivers used to the last 2 weeks to get lots of track time. Now, in recent years, we've seen Ford kind of do this, giving some of their NASCAR drivers some seat time in this race, with drivers such as Harrison Burton, Zane Smith, and Haley Deegan. Do you guys think Toyota kind of copied this model? And how much do you think it'll help Bubba Wallace, Nemechek, and Corey Heim on road courses in NASCAR? Let's start with you, Matthew.
Yeah, I think, what's that fun saying? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I think it worked very well for Ford last year. I mean, looking at the results, Zane Smith and Harrison Burton obviously won. And then Ben Rhodes, Truck Series champion, multiple-time Truck Series champion, with Haley Deegan were on the podium in 3rd. So I think it does work. And when you look at the success the drivers had, not Harrison Burton had, I would say, an off year, but Zane Smith won on road courses and went out and competed for the championship, had a great year. in the Truck Series as well. But in terms of getting these guys seat time, I think absolutely. When you hear a guy's name like Bubba Wallace or John Hunter Nemechek, for example, road coursing is honestly one of the last things you think of in their talent. I know Bubba Wallace, besides like 2 years ago, the debut of the Next Gen had a couple stretches of like top 8 finishes on a road course. But other than that, that's statistically his worst type of track. And then John Hunter Nemechek, I know Joe and I interviewed John Hunter Nemechek before the Portland race, and I believe that was his first top 10 ever in NASCAR on a road course after like 25 or something starts like that. So it's great for those two to get seat time. And then Corey Heim, somebody who has won in the Truck Series before, won on road courses. I would argue that Corey Heim is going to do what Ben Rhodes did, would compete in this challenge and then go out and win the championship that same year. So I think this is absolutely wonderful for guys. And I wouldn't be surprised if any three of these guys were a threat in their respective series this coming season on these type of road courses. I wish NASCAR still raced at the Daytona road course. I really do. It's my number 2 favorite road course track besides Coda. Coda's my favorite all time, but I think it definitely does a great job for these guys getting seat time, because anything matters despite what type of car. They can look at it from a different perspective as the other many NASCAR drivers who didn't compete in this race.
The seat time for these Cup Series drivers, it's a big deal. We got to remember, during the pandemic, we saw the NASCAR Cup Series at the Daytona road course. A little bit of adjustment with an additional chicane before the tri-oval. But as Matthew said, now that you're going to have some more stiff competition in these road courses in the Cup Series, getting those track time is such a great thing. And essentially, this is, I think, Toyota's attempt of, hey, let's do something that looks like it has worked on Ford. Because let's be honest, when it comes to the next season and you're looking at the road course and what the other manufacturers have, especially Chevrolet, Mr. Shane Van Gisbergen there, it's going to be a very strict competition. So I think it was great to see Bubba Wallace, John Hunter Nemechek get the time on the road course, get more time, more laps done, because at the end, long season, but anytime they could get themselves used to feeling uncomfortable in a race car where they're making the left turns, the right turns, shifting up and down a lot more frequently compared to the ovals. If they could get used to that feeling of being uncomfortable in the car and make it just a little bit more comfortable, they're in a much better spot.
And now this year, a record 9 women are in the field with Lilo Wadeau in LMP2. The Iron Dames number 83 in GTD brings newly announced F1 Academy driver Dorian Pinn into the race. Gradient Racing has Catherine Legg, Sheena Monk, and former IndyCar driver Tatiana Calderon. Ashton Harrison in the 93 with Racers Edge Motorsports with Wayne Taylor Racing. So Isha, Kobe, how exciting is it to have 9 female drivers in the race, and do you think the Iron Dames are one of the favorites for the GTD win? Isha, let's start with you.
Yeah, Alex, as a female, it's always very, very exciting to see increased female participation in motorsports, regardless of which racing series it is. But especially in the 24-hour races, it's very, very exciting to see such increased female participation. And I'm definitely excited to see such big names racing today as well. And as far as the Iron Dames are concerned, I think that they're definitely one of the favorites for the GTD win. I remember Kobe was talking about this a little bit a few minutes ago, but it's definitely going to be very interesting to see them race. And as a female, I hope they do win. I think it would be very, very exciting, and I think there's going to be a lot of fans rooting them on as well.
Yeah, I think representation is really important in motorsports, and I think it's really great that we have 9 women that are competing in this year's Rolex 24. Very, very, very fast, and I think it's going to be super exciting to follow their progress and see how they do throughout the race, and be sure to tune into future episodes of Women in Motorsports, which I'm sure they're going to talk about all 9 of these women and how they perform throughout this year's Rolex 24 at Daytona. And regarding the Iron Dames being one of the favorites to win in GTD, I'm gonna say you never know, because that lineup is really fast when they're whenever they're competing, let's say in the World Endurance Championship, they always seem to be in the mix there. And it would not surprise me to see them in the mix over in IMSA as well. Although I think the competition in IMSA is definitely a lot tougher in GTD than it was, in the GTM stuff that they've been running, the last couple of years or so. But I certainly think that the Iron Dames can can certainly make some noise in GTD. I just know one thing though, if the Iron Dames are in the fight, in the last hour, time for that final stint, Dorian Penn has to be in that car. Like that, yeah, I'm not saying anything, bad about the other drivers in that car. Rahel Fry, Sarah Bovey, Michelle Gottin, they're very fast as well. But if it was me, 2 minute warning. The game is tied. You need someone to go down the field to try to get a field goal or a touchdown to win. Dorian Penn has to be your quarterback. She needs to be that driver to get the final call, because I think she could get the job done during that final stint if the Iron Dames are in contention to win.
And now let's talk about almost all Oreca LMP2 class. Sean Creech Motorsport is the only team to opt out against the Oreca 07 chassis. Instead, they'll be fielding a season-long entry for Joao Barbosa and Lance Wilsey using the Ligier chassis. So far, the Ligier hasn't been far off from the Oreca. So Joe, Kobe, do you consider this a good or a bad move to gamble on the Ligier chassis when everyone else runs Orecas?
I think this was a smart move because one of the big things, if you're one of the few people that are using a same common chassis, in theory, you'll get better support from the chassis manufacturer. The drawback, you're not going to have the data that they have gotten from so many teams. So I could see this working out, and especially since they haven't been that far off the pace, they're getting more attention. And this is something very similar you've seen in other forms of motorsports as well too, especially when you have a factory team and a customer team. In this case, just about everyone is on the same Oreca chassis. The Ligier chassis, I think it's going to be really one of those deals where you can see them up towards the front. And the nice part, they don't have to worry about what goes wrong with the others, because sometimes we see that as well too. If you have one chassis, they're having an issue during the race or an engine issue, then the others will too, potentially. Ligier, this move, I think, hey, this is something to try to get that upper advantage in intense competition. LMP2, very competitive. I think this was a smart move.
Yeah, I see this as a what do you have to lose type of move. The last few years or so, we've seen nothing but the Oreca chassis and LMP2, and then the others, have just kind of gone away. But I thought this was very interesting. Sean Creech Motorsports is how, think outside the box, and instead of, following the crowd, they decided, that we're going to do different and see what works with this one. I think one thing they have working for them, is IMSA, decided not to BOP the two different chassis. So, if Sean Creech Motorsport at Ligier, they hit the right setup and it works well at the right track, they'll be good to go over the Orecas. And yeah, I think it's quite a gamble, instead of sticking with the same car, and the only difference being the driver lineup, they have a great driver lineup in that number 33 as well. But using different chassis, yeah, it's always a little bit of a risk, but I think it's certainly a good risk that they can take, and we'll see what they can do throughout this 24 hours. And I think the one thing that they have working towards them is, that, like you're saying, they're not that far off the pace. So, if things fall their way, they could potentially be in contention for the win in the LMP2 class, and then it won't matter whether you're in an Oreca or a Ligier.
And now Chevrolet and Ford are introducing new cars in 2024, the Corvette Z06 and GT3R and the Ford Mustang GT3. Which car is going to win more races this year in GTD Pro, Corvette or Mustang?
Gee, Alex, this is a tricky question. First off, I'm just going to be really excited to see how both of the cars perform. I know a lot of people have been waiting for this for quite some time, but I think the Mustang looks and sounds pretty great. But if I had to put all my pennies in one place, I think I'd go for the Corvette.
I'm leaning towards the Corvette too as well. The data that they have from past years. Ford, it's good to see them back. It's good for, I think, the American fans that particularly follow NASCAR, IndyCar, and then to hear, hey, Ford versus Chevrolet in IMSA competition. I think this is something worth being excited about, but I think Chevrolet has the upper hand.
Yeah, I think Chevrolet has the upper hand, but I'm going to just throw out, I think Ford's going to do it solely because what I believe we've seen from the practices, the Multimatic. Is it Multimatic? Yeah, they've just been incredible so far, and it's more of an equal field, but I like to root for the underdog in this sense, and I feel like Ford is coming in against Chevrolet in this battle, so I'm going to go with Ford. So there's a little 2-1 split here.
Yeah, yeah, and looking at the battle, between Chevrolet and Ford, battle of American muscle, that's what a lot of Americans like to see. But I'm actually gonna think I actually think that the Corvette is gonna end up getting the job done at the end of the day, because while the operation is different compared to, like I've been saying, from the Corvette factory team we've seen so many years now, to a customer supported type of effort. I still think that they're going to be able to rely on all of their years of experience. While we only saw the Ford GT for a handful of years, so in Multimatic Motorsports, we've mostly seen them, just competing in the IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge series, instead of the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. So this will be something completely new for Multimatic Motorsports. I think they're definitely a top flight team, and they're more than capable of getting the job done. I do think we will see both Chevrolet and Ford in victory lane this year in GTD Pro, but I think I could see Corvette certainly winning more races. But I'm sure everybody out there is going to be excited to see this battle shape up throughout the season.
And now we have one more thing here. There's been a last-minute driver change in LMP2. The number 52 Inter Europol by PR1 Matheson Motorsports entry will see Clement Novalek be replaced by Pietro Fittipaldi. According to Sports Car 365, Novalek suffered an injury to his leg and hip on pit road during final practice yesterday. So how much of a challenge is Fittipaldi facing entering the race unexpectedly at the very last minute without any practice? Kobe?
Yeah, this was definitely quite a surprise yesterday evening. We got from John DeGeese and his great staff at Sports Car 365. Yeah, this is something you don't really see happen often, but it's certainly something that will happen, and that's why you see drivers not participating in the Rolex 24. You'll still see them hanging out there. A lot of them will bring their helmet in their Hans device, just in case, because you never know when you might be needed. And it sounds like Pietro Fittipaldi was prepared just in case. So and we know Pietro Fittipaldi. He does have a lot of experience in LMP2, and he's familiar, with the Inter Europol squad. So I think that this is, I know I've said seamless transition a lot during this show, and I think this is another seamless transition. And I think Pietro Fittipaldi is going to do a great job filling in for Clement Novalek, the former Formula 2 driver. I think, it's unfortunate that Novalek is not going to be able to compete in the race. I hope whatever injury he suffered to his leg and his hip, will heal soon, and we'll see him back in a car very, very soon. But I think adding Pietro Fittipaldi to this lineup is a really smart move, and it's certainly going to be a lot of challenge for Pietro, because he hasn't been in the LMP2 car in a while, and Pietro probably thought he was just going down to Daytona just to enjoy the race, and here he is, very last moment, the day before. Well, the night before the race, you find out that you're going to have to go out there and compete, and that's why you always have to expect the unexpected and be prepared for anything that can happen. I think it's going to be quite a challenge for Pietro, but I think it's something he'll certainly be able to handle.
I do see Pietro being able to handle it. It is going to be a challenge, though, because even though with sports car racing, you try to make the car as comfortable as possible for all the drivers to be in there, so that way they can all be successful in it. Still, without that time of being there in the development, setting it up, it's going to be a little bit of a handful for him. I also think, too, how is this going to change the strategy? Because now you have one driver out, you have another driver in. That may not exactly be up to the pace. So you're going to be looking at how does this change your driver rotation schedule, and especially, I know we'll get a little bit later about the weather. How is it going to look at the night? Pietro, as you said, Kobe, he isn't just a rookie that just suddenly got the call. That would be worst case scenario. In this case, I think Pietro, he's going to get up to speed. He may not exactly be the fastest out there, but the reason why he was selected, he has the experience in racing. He is a good driver. Overall, I feel confident he could get adjusted to that car, work with drivers. He knows what to do to get the job done. He's not going to go out there and try to be a hero and then risk a good finish or a good performance and throw it all away. I think if he's running solidly, he's going to stay there, be great. But if that team is in the potential for a really good finish, I think he knows, leave it to the other co-drivers and the team. They're going to decide how to finish it off, how to bring home a good, solid finish. With that said, we'll go to a couple of comments in the chat room. Got this question earlier and I didn't read it correctly. How does diet come into play? I imagine small meals and high protein. Kobe, when it comes to the drivers in this 24-hour race, what are we looking at?
I said, well, in the last several years, NBC Sports has done a really great job highlighting, Wayne Taylor Racing with Andretti in particular. They have like a dietitian, who's assigned, to help the drivers with their diets, help them prepare for races, especially for a long 24-hour race like the 24 hours of Daytona. So obviously I'm not a dietitian, so I can't give you specifics of like the type of foods that drivers eat and all of that. But I can say is that a lot of these teams have dietitians hired dietitians who are making sure that the drivers are getting all the right things in their diet to make sure that they'll be fully functioning for all 24 hours to make sure that they'll be at full strength. So I think that is a really good thing that these teams are having these drivers take their diet seriously, because if you eat the wrong thing, you're probably not gonna be at your best for this 24-hour sprint race, which basically is what it is. So you need to make sure that you're in tip-top shape and doing everything you can to make sure that you're as healthy as can be, so you can give it your absolute all, because this is a race all about effort, and you need to give it your all, or otherwise you may not have your Rolex watch at the end of the day. But these teams, they take the health and the diet of the drivers very seriously to make sure that they're prepared at every angle. It doesn't matter what it is, whether it's engineers, strategists, making sure they're top of the game. The drivers, they have the dietitians as well, because they're really serious about making sure that they are very, very prepared.
Very, very prepared for such a long race. Brand Crosland side for Grid Network 2024. I agree. Don't turn back on BMW. Looking for the return of Corvette versus Ford in GTD. Leonardo, Corvette GT sweep is bold. Haha, I like this guy. I don't remember exactly who was it that predicted. Was that you, Kobe, that made
Yeah,
this?
yeah. It was me predicting a Corvette sweep, the Pratt Miller squad in GTD Pro and AWA in the GTD class.
And then one of the questions we have, what you folks learned so far this hot lap session? What's the pit windows for the Rolex 24? Pit window, pit strategy. I think one of the big things you're looking at is when it comes to the race conditions, the caution flags, that's all going to be playing big variables in this race. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens. Now, question for everyone, which race car has the best livery? I know I'll go myself, Kobe, and then we'll go around the order, but I got to say, I've always been a fan of the color of the Iron Dames number 83 GTD. Just very beautiful car, in my opinion. I think that will be my final answer. Kobe, what comes to your favorite paint job out of the lineup?
I said, well, looking at the best liveries, I'm actually gonna go for two. My first one is gonna be the obvious choice, the Rexy Porsche. How can you not like Rexy? And last year they did Roxy as well, and also also AO Racing they have a special livery on their number 99 LMP2 car as well, Spike the Dragon. Yeah, it really seems like they're really catering to the younger IMSA audience there. I know the kids who are race fans really love Rexy, Roxy, and then Spike as well. And I see you got comment in the chat room saying that, also agreeing with Rexy, and it's not even close. Yeah, I know. Imagine you're leading a race and you see this menacing dinosaur in your rearview mirror. Yeah, so Rexy is very intimidating. And also, I really like the number 40 entry on Wayne Taylor Racing with the sponsorship from Dex Image. I think the red looks really nice on that prototype.
I'm a big fan of the Wayne Taylor Racing liveries. They've always just been so solid. They're pretty simple, but I've always thought they've always stood out, and I've always liked them. They're always my favorites, but definitely Rexy, though. That one's just that's so cool. Shout out to Jackson Lambros, member of Grid Network. He loves that one.
I'm one of those. I mean, Rexy's great. I love the bright colors, like Kobe was saying, how it attracts people. I think just any color that neon. I know there were a couple orange and blue ones. I can't think of off the top of my head who specifically they were. I didn't look too much into that. I should have expected a question like this because of the incredible paint schemes or liveries that we see every year at the Rolex 24. I just like the bright neon ones. That's all I can really add to that.
Yeah, another comment in the chat room. I wish Naomi would do more racing. I assume that's Naomi, which of course does content for Formula One, did for W Series. Very talented racer. I think a lot of folks would love to see her back behind the wheel. Expected to rain this evening and into the mornings. We'll get into the weather just shortly. And one question, are the LMP2 cars the same model as last year? Cody, when it comes to LMP2 cars, I believe they might be the same, but there might be some changes here and there. Is that correct?
Yeah, Joe. These are the exact same LMDh cars that they used last year. The only difference is that it's not an all Orica field. We had that one Ligier that we just talked about with Sean Creech Racing. That's really the only difference that we have. And also the LMP2 field is more stat because we don't have any more LMP3. Since that went obsolete at the end of the 2023 season.
And one more, Rexy, duh, ha ha ha. So Rexy, of course, very popular. Now, Matt, as we're getting questions about the weather, we got to, I guess, switch over to that. When it comes to the weather for the Rolex 24, what are we looking at?
Definitely. I know Jason asked, and I know Joey asked as well. So the forecast for today and tomorrow is overcast with some scattered rain. And while there's still a low chance of rain, you have to realize this is Daytona, Florida we're talking about. Rain can appear quickly. Rain can appear randomly. It might be a downpour. We don't know. But according to predictions and stuff like that, it's overcast with a little bit of scattered rain. So I'm going to throw this first question to you, Kobe. How much additional work is it for teams and strategists to handle the chance of rain?
Oh, this is very important. I think, like you said, it's Florida. It's really strange when you come to Florida because because you may not think the rain will come, and then it hits all of a sudden. It just rains randomly at random spots because it may just rain on the back stretch, and then the front stretch is completely dry. It just shows where these rain pockets set up. But for a strategist, you have to be prepared for everything. And like I was saying earlier in the show, the strategy is constantly changing, and when it rains, you have to be able to change immediately. You have to adjust on the fly and make sure that you're on the top of your game, because if you call the wrong strategy, you may put your team out of contention in the race. It could be raining with 4 or 5 hours to go in the race, but you get the strategy wrong with the rain, you might have your team on the back foot, and it might cost yourself a win. So I think it's certainly a lot of work for these teams and strategists to prepare. But like I said, these guys and girls are some of the best in the business. So I'm sure that they are fully prepared for any rain that may come, and make sure that they're under, that their strategy is going to be, top notch.
Strategy is going to be top notch. It's going to be something where they're going to be monitoring. They know this is Daytona Beach, Florida. They know the patterns, the unpredictable nature. So they're definitely going to be checking that out. The big thing in the nighttime, though, that's where it gets a little bit more tricky. They're going to be more reliant on that radar information, because past too, we've seen it where you see a storm, wet weather coming, but then it just moves a little bit out of the direction of the racetrack. So then that's going to change it. So overall, they're going to have a lot of folks, potentially even in a war room type situation where they're just focused on strategy. Somebody's looking at the weather, feeding the data to the teams on pit road. So I think it's going to be always interesting to see how the weather turns out. But I don't think it's going to make or break somebody unless you have a situation where teams are trying to decide to switch to wet or not wet weather tires.
Yeah, definitely. And the weather can change from any second. Like, weather is just something that's so fascinating. But in terms of weather, I think a lot of it too with rain and stuff like that, especially into the night and then into the early morning when the sun actually comes out. So my favorite Bob Pockrass question that people ask him is, does this whatever speedway have lights? Yes, Daytona International Speedway has lights, or else we wouldn't have been able to do this. But they are not used at full capacity for this event. In the infield section, it has little to no lights, so drivers depend on a clean windshield and lights from their cars and competitors. So if it is raining, that definitely makes it more difficult for them. So I'm going to throw this one to you, Joe. If we get rain, which now I believe there is a little bit more of a chance, which section do you consider more treacherous under these wet conditions, the speedway or the infield section?
The infield section, I think, is the more treacherous. You do not have the lights. There could be some wet spots, and you're only going to find out about it once your headlights illuminates them. When it comes to the speedway, at the banking on the corners, the water is running down. So that's not too much of an issue. The big thing is hydroplaning is always the big issue. When you're in that infield section, less banking, more potential for standing water. Granted, Daytona International Speedway, they tried to make this kind of a track where you don't have to worry about standing water. But if you get a potential downpour, it's going to be really challenging. The biggest thing is that visibility factor. that's why I think the infield section is more treacherous. What about you, Kobe?
Yeah, I think you got it spot on, Joe. Infield section is definitely more treacherous. In years past, when we've seen it rain, all you basically have to do, on the oval section of the track, just basically hold a steady wheel. And we haven't seen drivers have much issue in the rain on the speedway portion, but the infield section, that's a very treacherous thing. Like, like you could slide off track, and get in the grass and you get stuck because when the grass is really soaked, at Daytona, any track with grass, it is very easy to get stuck there in the grass and the mud, and then we have to have a full course caution. So it will not. So if we do get this rain that could potentially happen during the race, it would not surprise me if we have a full course caution for someone going off in the infield section in the grass, because I think that section is going to be more treacherous. But the speedway section, I think the drivers are going to be perfectly fine on that. But if the ring, if it was to get like too bad and stuff, IMSA would have to call a red flag. I remember several years ago, it was the year that I believe Fernando Alonso won the Rolex 24 with Wayne Taylor Racing. They had to call off the race early because it was just raining so hard, and it was just to a point where it was just unsafe for all of the competitors and all of that. I don't think that's going to be the case this year at all. But IMSA takes safety of all the drivers, competitors very seriously. So if it were to get to a point where it was unsafe for the competitors, IMSA is going to do what's best for the drivers. So if that means calling a red flag, they'll certainly do that. But getting back to the question that was asked here, infield section, if it rains, be careful and stay on your P's and Q's.
Now, meteorologist Matthew, I'd like to make a proposal for you. I think next year we need to get you a green screen. That way you can be like pointing at the map and showing any rain coming. And we can say, like, it's this degree here in Daytona. Rain's coming. We have a window over the Gulf of Mexico. I think we could really boost up the weather forecast of the show next year. What do you think?
Maybe. See, I worked with WKTV, News Channel 2 down here in the Utica area, and they have one of the best weather teams, I'd argue, in the entire country. And with Eric and Bill, there's just a lot of experience. And I wonder if I can go up there and ask them if I can borrow something. I did sports, I did news, but one thing I never touched was weather, so I don't know if I would fit with the green screen.
Let's do it.
Point, it's raining here, but it's not raining there. It's tough with Florida weather, though. I couldn't imagine being a meteorologist in Florida because, you look at some, if you go through all the weather apps right now, some say 0%, some say 40 to 60, some say 80. It's just I don't know what's going to happen because it could rain down the street from my house, skip over me, and then somehow rain 2 blocks away that way. I'm just pointing at random stuff now. You got me on a little arm stuff going on, but yeah, weather is definitely a difficult thing. So maybe we might invest in that, depending on how many buy me a coffees we get here. Maybe we can get me a green screen behind for the next show. But in regards to, I think we hit pretty much everything here today. So what we do for the new people here today, we do this thing called Pick a Winner, and it's truly one of the best parts of this whole show. We're gonna have to update that because of breaking news out of Formula E. Mr. Nick Cassidy had won. And I believe I had Nick Cassidy on a last-minute change, Joe. You can confirm or deny if that qualifies for that. But so pick a winner. It's Fame Game. Get yourself on this leaderboard. See, Alex, I'm all messing up. Get yourself on this leaderboard right here. So we have Ben and Matthew Owens as well. They're the only ones there, but we're going to be adding Matthew B up there very soon. So pick a winner. I'm sorry I'm taking so long. We're only going to do GTP only. So I'm going to start it with Kobe. Who do you have winning the Rolex 24?
Like I said at the very beginning, being fast doesn't guarantee that you're going to win the race, but I'm going to stick with the fastest manufacturer and overall favorites. I'm going to stick with Cadillac, and I'm going to go with the number 01 Chip Ganassi Racing. Cadillac, I think Ringer Van der Zande, Sebastian Bourdais, Scott Dixon, Alex Palou. It's such a strong driver lineup, and I think they're going to get the job done, and they're going to have the Rolex watches at the end of 24 hours tomorrow and Sunday.
I'm going to go with a pick. It's not a Cadillac. Wayne Taylor Racing, the number 10. I think they're the favorites to go out there, get to win some long 24-hour race. I think they're going to get a job done and some more Rolex watches to their collection.
Yeah, I'm going to side with Kobe here and go with the number 1 Cadillac with Sebastian Bourdais, Ringer Van der Zande. Scott Dixon and Alex Pillow. I think they've got a great shot at it. And yep, that's my pick.
I alluded to it earlier. I think you're going to have a homecoming story here. Jordan Taylor, he's going to get another Rolex 24 win. First one back at home. And get it for the number 40 Wayne Taylor Racing number 40 car.
Definitely. And make sure you comment below because you can get yourself on the. I'm still pointing the wrong way. You can get yourself on this.
It's practice.
And I know it takes. The green screen has to be behind me in order for me to figure this out. But for Jason, for example, the number 7 Penske. That's who he's going with. Ben is going also with the number 10 from Wayne Taylor Racing. I'm going to side with Alex here, actually. This is a pick a winner. I am not changing like I did for Formula E to get Nick Cassidy. I think that number 40, Wayne Taylor Racing with Jordan Taylor, Luis Delatres, Colin Herta, and Jenson Button, I think it's that time to shine for those guys, and hopefully I can jump in the standings over. I did it. That's the 4th time. I'm gonna throw it over to whoever else wants to take it. I'm pointing in the wrong direction. So.
Joe ain't gonna give you no green screen.
Nope, I lost the right.
We're gonna need more Patreon and buy me a coffees to get a green screen for us here at the Green. I almost say Green Network.
The Green Network.
The Grid.
Network. I guess we're eco-friendly, right?
Definitely.
Hell yeah.
Eco-friendly. Now, a couple comments in the chat room. Starting off with this question, if I could find it. It was there earlier, but now it just seems to be missing. Here we go. Is fuel strategy even a consideration in a long race? I would say when it comes to fuel strategy, the big thing is they know when it comes to the fuel mileage, how far they have to go. Really, it will come down to if we have a lot of full course cautions, and that throws off the rhythm. Kobe, is there anything to add when it comes to the fuel strategy?
Oh yeah, Joe. I think field strategy is important all race long. And earlier during the race, we're gonna be seeing like which cars can go the longest on field. I know, the prototypes, the GTPs and the LMP2s, they're gonna have to come in and pit way sooner than the GTD Pro and GTD entries. Just because the GT cars have they have bigger gas tanks, than the prototypes. And the things that I'm going to be looking at is, can the Cadillac go the longest on field? Are they the shortest? Because that could be very important towards the end of the race, because it could very well turn into a field mileage finish. Like, look at the IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge race yesterday. That turned into a field mileage finish. Most of the teams couldn't make it, but it was that Kelly Moss with Riley Porsche. They were the only ones who were able to stretch the fuel. Like, it was like they almost ran 30 laps on that fuel tank, and they were able to save enough and make it to the end. So that very well could be the case in this year's Rolex 24 as well. It honestly depends on, when the full course caution falls. If it falls looking at the pit window, if it falls in a certain place, where maybe say 2-3 laps short, you might need another full course caution to be able to save enough gas to be able to make it to the end. But like we've been saying, this is very unpredictable. You don't really know what's going to happen, but it's very important to pay attention to see which cars can make it the longest or shortest on fuel.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. Laura is going with the number 10 or the 40 for pick a winner. And then Jason, how is tire pressure data analyzed and penalties against this year? Kobe, do you have a response to that?
I can tell you I'm definitely not an expert on tire pressure data or anything like that, but we did see what happened, with Meyer Shank Racing last year when while they got to keep the win, they lost all the points from the Rolex 2040s. It's really crazy. If they hadn't got that big tire pressure data penalty, they would have won the championship last year in the GTP class. So that was a super unfortunate situation. And I'm sure after what happened with Meyer Shank Racing, IMSA officials are going to be paying closer attention to the tire pressure data this year, and if someone violates the rules, they'll serve the same penalty that Meyer Shank Racing did.
One of the big things we're going to be following all 24 hours, watching the racing as it occurs. And of course, if you're watching in the United States, NBC. If you're outside the United States, it is on IMSA TV. And of course, if you have a Peacock subscription, full 24-hour coverage there. If you are dependent on television here in the United States, there is the data where it shows 1:30 p.m. to 2:30. Then it switches over to the USA network with the last closing bits of the race on NBC again. And of course, if you are streaming or watch on television and you want to get interaction with some friends over the internet, we recommend Joshua Burst 24-hour watch along. He'll be on YouTube and Twitch. So you'll be there able to chat with Josh, his special guests throughout the full 24 hours. See if you could last all 24 hours awake watching the race. Very exciting race. Cannot miss. And of course, we cannot miss out by thanking our Patreon subscribers, Colin Show, Mark, Rob, David, Matthew. If you enjoyed what you saw today, invest in the Grid Network. We have plans for 2024. We're going to be on more races, more track credentials. So we need to cover those expenses. Invest in us from as low as $5 a month to $25 a month. And if you want to do a one-time investment, you could do Buy Me a Coffee or YouTube Super Chat. You set the amount one time, or you could do it as frequently as you want. As you see, a couple folks have done 2 to 3 cups of coffee. And the big thing is, if you do a super chat of $10 or become a Patreon, you get some Grid Network stickers. We'll mail that to you as long as a thank you letter for investing in the Grid Network. And the simplest way to invest in us, support us, hit the bell icon and subscribe to us right here on YouTube. Once we hit 1,000 subscribers, we reach another goal in the growth of the Grid Network. We'll start out just 0 subscribers. Here we are now, 832. We've been to several tracks. If this is your first time you came across our channel, check our past covers, especially the Portland races, other big events, and of course, some of the big events we're going to be covering, the Daytona 500 in a couple of weeks' time, Formula One when they come back as well. A lot of racing. And a big thank you, Jason M., $5. Aloha from Hawaii. Thank you for tuning in, Jason. We hope to see you at more tracks. Not more tracks, at more shows. And Leonardo confirmed 2 bought coffees. I can't wait to see more from this channel. Subscribe, Leonardo, Jason. We're looking forward to seeing you at more programs. And of course, Isha, Alex, they have links to their channels as well too for more motorsports content, as well as all of our program hosts as well, and gridranking.com, where you can see all of our team members right there. And with that said, we're just about out of time. So once again, be sure to tune in to NBC United States. If you're outside, IMSA TV will be broadcasting, and of course, Joshua Burst watch along over the internet. So for everyone here, definitely a big thank you to everyone tuning in. For Alex Anderson at the Gay Racing Podcast, Isha Azim from Racing with Isha, Matthew, and Kobe, I'm Joe San Diego. Thank you for watching today's pre-race coverage of the Rolex 24 Hours of Daytona. We'll leave with the starting lineup for this great race. Take care and enjoy the race.